Yep, good to go. Seema, over to you.
All right, cool. Well, hello everyone. Thank you so much, Joanna, for the introduction and for the opportunity to do this. This is something that I've always wanted to do. Try and kind of share the experience and the learnings that I have from my years of working in the social media landscape. And I think teaching is also a great way for me to also strengthen my basics. And then it also helps me give perspective when other people ask questions about these things. So I'm really glad we have this opportunity. Joanna, just one question before we begin. The people who have joined us today, are they all beginners in social media, or do they have some idea?
So everyone is either a student currently in university or
Okay.
a recent graduate, or we might have
Okay.
some older people who are also kind of starting out. So
Okay.
beginner to intermediate level. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. All right. As Joanna mentioned today, we're talking about social media audits and why they're necessary and how they help you when it comes to creating your social media strategy. Any of you, I'm sure everyone over here is familiar with social media and you understand how it works. You're familiar with different kinds of platforms like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter. There are so many of them that we use on a day-to-day basis. And but when it comes to using it as a branding opportunity, it gives you so many different options. It gives you so many different platforms, and sometimes that can be very overwhelming. So whenever you're doing any kind of when you decide to use social media, whether it's for your personal use, whether it's for, say, you go ahead and become a social media manager in an agency or in a company, you might want to understand how do I use social media to better benefit the brand or the client that you have. So the first thing that anyone essentially ever does is a social media audit. A social media audit is extremely important for you to understand where your brand is, and it gives you a very crucial starting point. And it gives you, when a social media audit is done right, it gives you the right foundation to create your strategy on, a firmer strategy on, right? Now, as all of us know, social media is something that changes every day. Anyone who uses Instagram knows that every 2 or 3 months we have a couple of new features that pop up, right? Where we started with just Instagram posts, then we had Instagram videos, then we have stories, now we have IGTV, then we have reels. YouTube recently started introducing a concept called YouTube Shorts. So how do you understand which is the right platform for you to use? How do you understand which are the right content types to use? That is where a social media audit is very, very useful, right? So let me just start with the presentation. I hope all of you can see the screen. And there we go. So social media audits to strengthen your strategy, right? Um, let's start with the basic agenda of what this presentation will cover. We have what is a social media audit, understanding what the basics are. How do you start with a social media audit? Where do you start? Whether you're a beginner, whether you already have a brand, whether you have a couple of pages active, where do you start with a social media audit? What is the right starting point for you? Uncovering all of your social media accounts. How do you look at the current accounts that you have or you want to be on and figure out what to do with them? Find your data for each social media account, understanding what kind of data you can mine from each of your accounts. And finally, once you have all of this data on hand, what do you do with those findings and how do you make it useful for your strategy, whether you're a new brand or you're an existing brand which wants to refine its strategy, right? Getting on with it. So, coming down to the basics of the definition of what a social media audit is, it's a series of steps that we take to evaluate and optimize a business's social media profiles and strategies. Like I mentioned, it doesn't always have to be a business social media profile. You could be very well using this for your personal branding as well. A lot of people, like influencers, content creators, they use social media quite a bit. To put out content on channels like YouTube, on Instagram, on LinkedIn as well. And using a social media audit is always a useful starting point for you when you want to start building or when you want to understand where should I build my social media strategy, right? Moving on. So, where does a social media audit usually come in? Don't be overwhelmed by this chart, but if you could see the third part of this chart, that is the third square on the chart, we have you start with identifying the marketing problem, or you start with identifying your brand. What are you as a brand? What do you want to say as a brand? And how do you want to use social media? That is, so those become your social media objectives. That's the second square that you see over there. So you understand how do you want to use social media to put your messaging out there, right? And then you go on to doing a social media audit, which is what we'll be covering in today's presentation. Using the findings of your social media audit, it usually helps you define and refine your social brand. It helps you define what your personality is online, whether you're a personal brand or whether you're a corporate brand. What kind of social media channels should you be using? Finally, you understand what kind of content should be going on each of these social media channels. It then further helps you. So whenever you put content on your social media channel, it's a constant process of putting out content, understanding how the content is working for you, and then moving ahead. You always reassess, refine, and then implement. So that's a constant loop that you always have. And once you do that, that is how you then constantly keep maintaining your social media calendar or your social media content flow, right? So that is where your social media audit comes in. Whether you're when you're starting off, it's the very first thing that you do, where you analyze what current channels you have or want to have. You start analyzing what the landscape is like, what other people in the field are doing. That is your analysis. That is your audit of the current landscape that you do. Once you do that, you have your findings, you're armed with all of that data and that information. And that is what you use to then build your brand or refine your brand. Now, why do you need to do a social media audit? Like I said, if you're an existing brand, you could use a social media audit to refocus your efforts on your business goals. A lot of the times, what happens is when you're working in an agency or working in a company, you tend to be you have kind of blinders on when you're doing your social media content. You start getting used to a certain rhythm, start getting used to a certain kind of content, a certain kind of look and feel, and you just keep pushing that content out there without really realizing whether that content is connecting with your audience or not. One of the most important uses of social media is that it's a two-way platform, right? One of the most beautiful things about social media is that when you put content out there, you can get immediate feedback. So you need to understand that whatever you're putting out there is connecting with your audience, whether it's you as a content creator, as an influencer, or whether it's as a B2C brand or like a retail brand, or whether it's a B2B brand, like a bigger, company like GE. All of us always need to stop and reassess. So it helps. Social media audit is very helpful for you to refocus your efforts. Second, you know how well you're performing. We put in so much of effort in creating posts, in creating videos, in creating graphics, in creating New Year cards, Christmas cards, and all of that. How do we know whether people care, whether people are seeing, whether all of the effort and the time that we put in is being rewarded in the sense that are people even paying attention to what we're doing, right? Then based on that information, you then understand what is working and what is not working, what needs to be changed and what can remain. What should be a priority going forward? When you do a social media audit, sometimes you might realize that, maybe just doing posts is not working out for me. Just putting photographs is not working out for me. Maybe I need to do more stories, or maybe I need to do more videos. Maybe I need to open up a new YouTube channel. So that is when you understand where your priorities need to be and where your efforts should really be focused so that you can be efficient in all of the efforts that you put in. Finally, if you are not doing this as a single person, and if you're working in a team, which is usually the case in agencies and bigger companies, how well are you equipped to do all of this? Do you have the right equipment? Do you have the right tools? Does your content look good enough when it's on those platforms, right? So these are the important pieces of information that jump out to us when we do a social media audit. Now, how do you go about doing the social media audit? Where do you even start, right? Now, before I go into the pay tools, I will skip ahead. Now, when you do social media audits, there are a couple of easy free resources that are available. All of the channels that we usually use, like Facebook, like Instagram, like LinkedIn, like Pinterest, like YouTube, like Twitter, they all have their inbuilt dashboards. So whether you have a personal account or whether you have a corporate account or a branded account, all of your channels, all of your pages have inbuilt analytics dashboards, right? So Facebook has an analytic dashboard which looks like this, which is completely free to use. There's absolutely no charge on these, right? So um, I will come back to this to go deeper into the dashboard. So you have the free tools, and then you have paid tools that give you a little more information than what is there on these free tools. It gives you information on what has been happening with your brand for the past 7, 8 months. So you can even go up to 2 or 3 years worth of data if you pay enough amount of money on these platforms, right? Which becomes extremely useful data for you to use when you want to predict your social media strategy. So whenever you're armed with data, whenever you're armed with numbers, you always know what kind of content works for you. So a couple of useful ones are Social Bakers, Meltwater, Sprout Social, Hootsuite, Sprinkler, Buffer. These are all fantastic tools. They're paid. They all have quite a few flexible options that you can always check out. And what happens when you use these tools is, A, they're extremely user friendly. So you don't really have to struggle to understand what data is being shown to you. And you understand easily what is working, what is not working. But it also helps put it into a neat little dashboard. So you don't have to go into each of your posts and then figure out what is working and what is not working. I apologize for that. But then you also realize everything is in one place and you get a nice little overview of what is happening. For example, when you come to a Facebook dashboard, well, I don't know if this is completely visible. Let me try zooming in so you can see properly. So when you see a dashboard, you have a couple of things on them, like how many people have come to your page, how many people have viewed your page, how many people has your page reached, right? How many people have liked your page? How many engagements have you had on the content that you have put out? How many people have messaged your page? How many followers has your page increased or decreased by, right? So these are the kind of informations that will pop out to you when you go into any analytic dashboard. Now, I'll take you through a couple of other dashboards so you understand how an analytics dashboard looks like. If you have any particular doubt on what each KPI is, you can always, like Joanna mentioned, put it into the chat and I'll get back to you guys. So that is what a Facebook dashboard would look like. Second, we have, this is what your YouTube dashboard would look like. So you've been assuming you've been putting up quite a few videos on YouTube and you want to know what your content is looking like. How many views has your videos gotten? How many minutes of your video have people watched? So you put out 10-minute videos, 15-minute videos. Are people even watching all of that? Where do people drop off? Should I make shorter videos? If people aren't watching the entire 15-minute video. So an analytics dashboard, like I said, puts it ties all of your different KPIs into a neat little package so you can always see it in one go. You also have filters where you can always decide whether you want to see data from the last week, last 28 days, like 30 days, or as and when you please. Maybe for a quarter, if you're a business owner, you might want to see how your data has been performing for a quarter, right? So that is what a YouTube dashboard looks like. I will then take you to, this is what a LinkedIn dashboard looks like. If you have a personal account, you can always go into the number of views and see how many people have viewed your personal account. You'll see how many people come to your page every day. You'll know whether, if you're someone who constantly puts up content on LinkedIn, then you know that how many people have viewed your post, how many people have clicked on your post. Similarly, if you have a page, you have similar analytics like the Facebook page had. How many followers you have, how many post likes you have, whether the page likes have gone up or gone down. Was there a particular post that you put up on a particular day that caused a spike? Right? So these are the kind of information that you have. Another thing is, another great thing is you have information like demographics and which particular industry are your followers from. Those are the kind of details that LinkedIn also gives you. So each platform has its own points of focus. So Facebook, since it's a social sharing platform, focuses a lot on the likes and the comments and the shares, which is a lot more casual and something that we don't really, it doesn't really have that much of a bearing unless and until it comes to a business account where you want to really understand how many people are commenting. Are the comments, are they really useful? Because a lot of the times we put up posts and we do see a lot of spam accounts which say follow our page or like our page and win a prize or something like that. How do you know that all the content that you're putting out there gives you relevant engagement, or it's making an actual difference to the people that you are looking at your account? Right. Then you have Instagram. If you have a business account on Instagram, you can always go into the analytics, and this is what your dashboard on Instagram will look like. It'll show you how many followers you have, how many accounts you reached, how many followers are new followers, how many followers have just come to your page because they probably saw an interesting story somewhere else. What kind of content, if you're someone who puts up posts, if you're someone who puts up reels, if you're someone who puts up IGTV videos, which one of them is being received well? How many of your posts get likes? How many of your posts are getting seen? So you get to see a lot of data that is, get a lot of drill down on your data. You get to see detailed numbers on each kind of post, each type of post that you put up in a particular time period. So there are nice little ways in which you can always interact with the filters, and you can play around and see how your data changes. So that's your Instagram dashboard. And so those are just some of the few examples that we have of what kind of dashboards are available. So like I said, you have your free dashboards, which are free to use. You don't really have to pay anything to access them. And then if you want to strengthen your data, if you want to fortify your data and figure out what is a better way to go about using your content to empower your brand, then you could always go for, if you have the budget, you can always go for paid tools. Those are always very interesting to use and add a lot of insight and depth into the amount of information that you have. Moving on, now I explained the tools that you can use to do a social media data. Now, audit. Now, once you have those tools, where do you start, right? So you start with identifying whether, if you're a new brand, or you're new to social media, then you start identifying what are the channels you want to be live on. Where do you want to put out content? If you're an existing brand and you already have your pages live, then you identify what are the current channels that you are active on. So I've just put up a couple of logos. I'm sure everyone's familiar with them. We have Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter is missing, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, Reddit, Discord. These are all new channels which are coming up, which newer places for us to interact with our audiences, right? So you identify what are the different channels that you're already on. Or if you're new, then where do you want to put out data? If you're a influencer, a content creator, you might feel like I want to be active on Instagram and YouTube. If you want to build a personal brand, you want to get a new job, or you're a consultant like myself, you might want to brand yourself on LinkedIn and on YouTube, right? So these are the different ways in which you identify which channels you want to be on. So once you're done with that, we move on to identifying what is your competition doing. Now, competition is always not taken in that negative or competitive negative connotation. It's about understanding the landscape that you are in. So what are other people doing? There's always a useful, so by understanding your competitors or by understanding other people who are in the landscape, you understand what is working and what is not working. So you can avoid making the mistakes others are making, and then probably get a head start on doing the kind of content that you want to do. Understand what channels are they on. Try and understand, is it working for them? How many views are they getting on their posts? How many views are they getting on their YouTube videos or on their Instagram videos? How many likes are their Instagram posts getting? How many people are sharing their Facebook posts? So once you identify your competitors, now you might have one or two or three. You need to identify all of them and then identify all of the channels. Like we did identify channels for ourselves, we then want to identify channels for our competitors as well. Next, you now understand what the channels are. You understand what you want to do on those channels. Next, you need to understand what do we even measure, right? Now we have two kinds of content that goes out on social media, rather three. You have organic content, something that is done free of cost. Like say today, if I go out on a walk, I see a nice moonlit sky, I take a picture, I put it on my Instagram. That's free, completely free of charge. I had to pay nothing to create that image, and I put it up on my feed, and I start getting likes from friends or comments from friends. So that is an example of an organic post. It is something that you don't have to pay anything to create, right? So all of your organic content, you first identify all of that on your channels, whether it's Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. You identify all of the free content, and you identify what are these are the couple of KPIs that are there that can help you understand how people are interacting with your content. So the common ones are likes, comments, shares, which we are familiar with. Then we have organic followers. Are people following your account? Are people unfollowing your account? Has your number of followers not changed? And then once you go into dashboards, you get even more insight into KPIs like reach, which is how many people is your content reaching. So based on the social media algorithm, how many people apart from your followers, apart from your friends, is it reaching more accounts? Are people sharing your content? So is your reach increasing because of that? Once you reach more people will see your content. So when you scroll on a post on your social media feed, if you scroll past it really quickly without paying attention to it, that doesn't count as an impression, right? So when you spend some time on the post, that counts as an impression. So then people are stopping to see the picture that you've put up. They're stopping and taking some time to understand what kind of video content you've put up. So you understand by the number of impressions whether people are paying attention or no. And then, of course, there's something called engagement rates. So engagement rates, in a very, very simple format, is the number of likes, comments, of shares that you get over the number of followers that you have. So if you have, say, 10,000 followers on your account and you're getting like 10 likes or 2 likes or 3 likes, then your engagement is pretty low, because despite having so many followers, not a lot of people are engaging with your account. So your engagement rate is low. Say if you have 10,000 followers and at the same time you're getting 5,000 likes, 200 likes, 300 likes, then you know that your engagement rate is on the higher side. So that's a very important way to understand, are all of the people who are following you or who've liked your page, are they actually engaging with your page? Are they actually relating to the content that you're putting out there? So those are your organic performance indicators. Then you have you have your other indicators which give you more insight into how people are interacting with your content. Maybe the first one that we could go into is location-based performance, right? So if you're an international brand, say like a Coca-Cola, you know that a brand like Coca-Cola has wider mass appeal. It's not something that is just followed by people in the Middle East or in India or in Europe or in America. You know that people everywhere else are looking into your content. So the dashboards that you have will always give you information on what are the different kinds of people that are looking at your account. Are people from, say, even if you're a Middle Eastern brand, you can always understand whether people from Saudi are looking into your account, whether people from Kuwait, whether people from Oman, Qatar, Dubai, are they all looking into your account? You can also have a drill down where within the UAE, you can figure out which of the Emirates is giving you more engagement, right? So those are called location-based KPIs or performance parameters. Then you have demographic-based parameters, which are parameters based on what walk of life do you come from. Are you someone who is a businessman? Are you someone who is an entrepreneur? Are you someone who is a housewife? Are you a student sitting at home on the holiday break and consuming content? So your dashboards also give you information on these things. These are called demographic based content or performance parameters, which tell you which walk of life are people from, and how do they interact with your content, right? So you understand whether it's the kids who like your content, or whether it's the housewives who have some more time. If you're an influencer who runs pages like something about cooking at home or work from home tips and everything. So then who are the kind of followers that you have who identify with your content. Same goes for gender-based KPIs as well. You understand whether right now most dashboards don't have a lot of representation. They split it mainly between female and male, and they look at whether you have more female followers, whether you have more male followers. A very cliched way of looking at it would be a sports page might tend to have more male followers, and a fashion page might have more female followers. A brand like IKEA might have a good mix between female and male, because they tend to appeal to both demographics at the same time. Then the other types of KPIs that you can look at is, you've understood what kind of content is going out there, you've understood where your people are from, what age they are, Now you look at how the efforts that you're putting in, how are they coming out, and how are they reflecting on the kind of engagement you get on your post. The one most important thing, which usually tends to slip everyone's mind, is when do you put that content out? Do you get up in the morning and post it at 9 a.m.? Do you, wait for everyone to come back from work and start posting at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m.? Do you do it on weekends, or do you do it on Sundays when everyone's kind of bored of work, or do you do it in the midweek when people are looking to find things to do on weekends? So depending on the kind of brand that you are, and depending on the objective that your brand has, you then understand when to put your posts out, right? So if you're a brand that wants to give out traffic information, then if you're giving morning traffic information, it's only sensible to put it out in the morning when before everyone starts leaving home. So you'd want to start doing it at 6:30 in the morning or 7 in the morning. If you are someone who wants to give out offers for dinners at restaurants, so it's probably better for you to start posting around 4 or 5 when people have started winding down from work, and they're probably looking through their phones to understand what are the offers that they have nearby. So understanding your brand and understanding what your objectives are very important for you to understand when to post your content, right? So when you do an audit, you understand, have you been sticking to your objectives? So that is when an audit becomes extremely useful for you. You start understanding, oh, am I being true to the kind of audience that I want to speak to, or have I slowly started deviating because of other, uncontrollable factors? So the last type of KPI that you have is type of device or placement, right? So like I previously gave the example of Instagram, where you have Reels, you have IGTV, you have Stories, you even have Instagram Live. You might have a lot of video content, and you're trying to figure out what is the best way for me to put this video content out, right? Where does it make sense for me to put my video content out? And that is when you realize, when you look into the data and you see how people are engaging with your Instagram stories, with your Instagram reels, you understand what kind of format is something that people are responding more to. Are people more likely to respond to your content if they see it on laptops? Are they more likely to respond to it when they see it on PCs or on their phones, or if you're putting out a lot of written content like blog content, which is either on your, say, LinkedIn, or long written posts on Facebook, maybe they're being received better when people are seeing it, or perusing it on their iPads, right? So, how is the different content that you're putting out? How is it being perceived on these different devices? Again, I apologize. So these are the different ways in which KPIs give you insight into all of the effort that you've been putting into your content. How is it being perceived based on where your audience is, what age they are, what gender they are, what time you're putting these posts out on, and where these posts are being seen by your followers. So that is a very important way for you to understand. It gives you more information about how your audience thinks, right? So once you understand how your audience thinks, you're able to become a better partner to them. You're able to give out better content to them. You kind of start getting to know them. It's like kind of being friends, right? When you get to know your friend better, you know what to get them for their birthday. So the more you start to get to know your audience better, the better you're able to create content which is useful not only for you, but for your followers as well. Now, moving.
Seema, just while we're still on these KPIs, there are
Sure.
two questions in the chat. So Amna
Uh-huh.
has a question. Can you explain the concept of engagement once more? Is it just likes and shares, or is it more than that?
Of course. So when it comes to an audit, and when we're looking at social media reporting, there are different levels at which you can increase your complexity, right? So when it comes to, if you want to do a simple engagement rate, then I would say you take the number of followers you have, and you look at the likes, comments, shares, and yeah, you can just look at those, and that gives you and what do you call it, kind of an overall idea of how your page is doing. But if you really want to go down to seeing, that gives you an idea of how followers are coming onto your page. If you want to drill down and then go into the details of it, then KPIs like reach, KPIs like impression, then they start becoming more important, right? Because there also the calculation becomes a little more, I wouldn't say complicated, more factors come into it, right? So you have more people who, like, because when you're looking at reach, you're not only looking at people who are already following your page, but you're looking at people who might have, say, I might have liked a post that Joanna put up and I might share it. So I'm one follower who's engaged with it. But then because my friend who's seen Joanna's post has engaged with it, then her reach increases, right? So then just looking at organic followers is not enough for you to understand engagement rates. So the basic idea is how many people saw the post, how many people you intended to send the post to, and how many people actually engaged with it, right? So that is a good way for you to understand engagement rates, like how many people you wanted to say something to and how many people actually heard. That's
Yeah,
a
makes
right.
sense. Makes sense.
That's a very
Absolutely
simple.
makes sense. Another question by Helena is, I think you kind of covered it right now. Can you
Mhm.
explain the concept of reach and how is it measured?
Sure. So the concept of reach again is, like I said, we put out posts, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, wherever. We all have a central feed, right? Like we have a homepage on Instagram or on Facebook where we scroll through. There are two places, right? One place is where you post from yourself, and then you can see the post that you've made. That is your homepage. Then you have your feed where you scroll through all of the content of all the pages that you've subscribed to, correct? So on that feed, how many people are seeing your post because A, you posted it, B, because someone else shared it, or because a lot of people are liking it, so it's coming up on the feed a lot more because you always see something like your friends have liked this post, so you tend to see a post a lot more. So the more that happens, the more, so it's also a little bit based on an algorithm, which I don't really want to dwell on right now because it's a separate topic. But it just really depends on how many people are engaging with it. That increases the number of times people are getting to see it on their feed, not necessarily interacting with it, but seeing it on their feed. That is your basic reach, right? So your reach doesn't always have to be just your followers. It can be people who might have seen it because you've liked it or because you've shared it. So that's your reach. How many people actually take time to interact with it and see it? That is called impressions. Does that help?
Perfect. That makes sense. One more question. Sorry, one more.
No problem.
Alexa has a question. Is there any good range between engagement and follows? I'm not entirely sure what that means. So
Any
if
good
she,
rate of engagement
yeah,
and followers?
and follows,
Okay,
yeah.
so yeah, that's a good question because, but the answer to that is it depends. It depends on whether you are a personal page. It depends whether you're a corporate page. It depends whether you're an influencer. So, say if I am a influencer who likes cars, right? So in my landscape, there might the usual standard or the usual term that we use is benchmarking, right? So what is the usual number of followers anyone is consider? How do you know someone is successful, right? We say that if they have 20,000 followers in a niche area like car bloggers, then they're considered to be successful. Then you understand, okay, if I have 10,000 followers, so for me to be really successful, I need to get to 20,000, right? So then you know that, okay, that's a good number to have. But that changes like movie stars. They have followers that go into the range of millions, right? And then there are brands like Coke and everything which have followers that go into 100 million. So that way you know that each industry, each vertical has its own benchmark of understanding, okay, in this industry, if you're a movie star and you have around 7 to 8 million followers, then you know you've made it as a movie star because there are those many people that are following you. Similarly, for engagement rate, if you have 7 to 8 million followers, then on an average you should be getting 500,000 to 600,000 likes on your posts. So that means your engagement rate will be somewhere around the mark of 10%, 15%. So that is when you know that your engagement rate is right. So the answer to that is every vertical is different, right? So for a personal page, it's different. For a corporate page, like something like a GE and Schneider, they'll have different rates. Again, within those verticals, if you're looking at automobiles, they will be different. If you're looking at retail, they will be different. If you're looking at the pages of supermarkets like Carrefour and I'm completely blanking on supermarket names, but if you look at all of those pages, they'll have a certain benchmark. So for each industry, it's different. And based on, so an audit, and when you do a competitor analysis, that will give you your benchmark. So that is when you know, okay, this is how I am doing in my industry, right? Maybe you're doing really well. Maybe you have more followers than all of your competitors. Or maybe you still have some time to catch up. Or maybe you're really new and you know that, okay, I need to get to this point. So that is how you understand. So benchmark is your answer for that, to understand what is a good engagement rate and what is a good follower number.
Perfect. Yeah. That's all the questions. I'll let you go
All
on
right.
with the rest of the presentation. Yeah.
All right. Where was I? Okay, I've skipped ahead. Okay, so we were at the different types of KPIs. So I've explained all the five basic types of KPIs. Bear in mind that the more detailed you want to get in your dashboards, especially when you go for the paid tools, you get to see a lot more KPIs, like not only timing, not only device. You get to understand where your traffic is coming to. Like, how did people come to know that you have Instagram page? Is it through your YouTube page? Did someone else tell you? Did someone search for it on Google? So you get to know there's something called finding the traffic source as well, which tells you how people go to your page. So if you when you use these bigger paid tools, they're a great way for you to understand what kind of different KPIs are really there. A great way to do that is a lot of these paid tools, they have trial periods, which have like 15-day trial periods, 30-day trial periods. So always go up, sign up, but always sign up for something that doesn't ask for your credit card, because it's very painful when you get that first billing without canceling. So always go for something that has a trial period, play around with the page, and then see what kind of KPIs you get to see over there. Right? Moving on. Those are the organic parameters that I was talking about. Now you have your paid ad performing KPIs, right? Now you have content that you've put out for free by yourself without really putting in a lot of effort. Then we have something called paid ad campaigns. A lot of the times we are not strangers. We see ads upon ads on social media. So anything that comes in as a sponsored post or with an ad label on it, whether it's on your Google search, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's those annoying little ads in the middle of your YouTube video, they're all paid content, right? Someone has put in a certain amount of budget saying that I want to pay $20 for a month to push my video, or I want to put in 500 dirhams per month to push in my e-commerce website. So whenever you see these different ads, those are paid content. And similar to the kind of KPIs that we use, like we use likes, shares, reach, impressions, reshares and retweets and stuff like that. We use the same performance indicators, but instead of followers, what we measure here is the amount of money that we put in, right? So that is how you understand what kind of engagement you're getting for the kind of media budget that you're putting in. So you have organic performance content indicators and paid performance content indicators, right? So I will not dwell too much into the paid ad performance, because it's again a separate subject in itself. But to give you a basic idea, instead, when we are measuring organic following, we look at followers. When we're looking at organic KPIs, when you're looking at paid KPIs, you're looking at the amount of money that you put in and the kind of engagement, or the kind of increase in followers, or more hits to your website, or more hits on your YouTube video. How much did you get for the amount of money that you put in, right? So that is one. That is another type of KPI. The third type of KPI is how are people interacting with the different kinds of content that you're putting in. So there's images. That was the most basic one. That's how Facebook started. That's how Instagram started. Then we started having videos. They started with 15-second videos. Then they became 30, then 60. Now you can put an entire hour of video or hours of video on YouTube. You can put up to an hour or 2 hours on Instagram, on your IGTV as well. You can go live if you have an event, or if you're hosting, like over here I've used the example of makeup artists who are kind of giving live tutorials. A lot of this became extremely popular during the pandemic as well, and became a very, very useful way of putting your content out there. Reels, which are the recent and most recent craze that we have stories, we have reels, we have IGTV. There's so many different ways in which you can express yourself as a person, as a brand. And then when you understand how many likes the video is getting, how many views the video is getting. If you have a 10-minute video, did people watch the entire 10 minutes, or did they skip and watch it, or did they watch only a little bit and then did they exit, or did an ad come in between and did that annoy them? So a lot of your dashboards will give you information about these things, right? So, and they will tell you how each type of content is performing for you. You'll also understand if maybe the videos that you're putting out there, maybe you're putting in a lot of money to create these videos, but people aren't really interacting with it. So then you can decide that, okay, maybe I should just stick to image-based content. Maybe I should just stick to photography-based content. Or if you realize that you put in that one story, which tends to give you a lot of interaction, or a lot of people started like paying attention to what you did. A lot of people started interacting with you. You started getting a lot of DMs on your Instagram or on your Facebook. That's when you realize that, okay, this kind of format really works for me, right? So using numbers to see how people have interacted with these different kinds of content, you understand whether your content is working for you or no. Then now you've seen all the different kinds of content. You've seen the different kinds of KPI that we have. So then what do? You've understood what is organic content. You've understood what is paid content. You've understood what are the different types of content. You have understood who the different people are who are looking at your content. And then we have a concept called campaign, where it's not really something that you look at, like it's not something that you look at from a yearly basis or a 3 monthly basis. It could be something very specific. So an example could be holiday campaigns. We see a lot of campaigns for Christmas. We see a lot of campaigns for New Year's. We see a lot of campaigns for Ramadan, for Diwali, right? So these are different event-based campaigns or ads that we do or content that we put out. So those are called campaign-based KPIs. Their KPIs are similar. You're again looking at likes, shares, impression, reach, follower numbers, views if it's a video, and stuff like that. So you have stuff that's called campaign-based KPI, and like I explained earlier, source-based traffic. That is, you understand how people are discovering your channel, whether it's because they came to your website and then they say, okay, they have a social media page, they clicked on that, they came to your page, or if it's because they probably saw your social media handle somewhere else, maybe on a banner, on a billboard, and they decided to come to your page. So that's called source traffic, right? So you take all of this information that you have and you create a dashboard for yourself, right? You put all of this information together and create a dashboard for yourself, one for yourself and one for your competitors, right? Your competitor can be one, two, three, up to seven, eight, or even more than that. So dashboards help consolidate all of this for you. Let me see if I can show you this. Can you see this Excel sheet?
Not right now.
All right, just a sec. I will have to stop presenting and present again. So this is an example of what a dashboard looks like, right? So
Yes, we
I've
can see it.
taken all of the different data. Do I need to zoom in?
Yeah, maybe just a little bit.
Okay. So over here, you can see I've taken all of the engagement from all of my different channels: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, Reddit, right? I'm looking at all of my, so this is where you list down all of your current social media profiles, right? Your Instagram, your Facebook, your YouTube, Twitter, whatever it is. And you're looking at, say, you want to put in the date, you can put in the date as well. For what period are you measuring this? New social media networks you want to explore. Maybe you want to do a Reddit page, maybe you want to put up a Pinterest page, right? You then note down all of your Twitter, all of the engagement rates from your different types of pages, all of the social media messages that you have sent. So what we usually do is, once you've identified all of your channels, you channel by channel, you can create pages like this, right? You can then identify all of the different KPIs that I've spoken of, and you can note them down by channel. You can then consolidate them and then consolidate them into a page like this. This is what forms your dashboard, right? So all of the details that you've been recording in all of these different sheets for each of the channels that you have identified for yourself and for your competitor brands, they can then be neatly summarized into a sheet like this. So then when you look at it in one go, you understand exactly how you have been performing, how many followers you've gained on each of the channels, how many impressions you have on each of your channels, which, say, if you've put out different URLs, right? Like maybe you have a website URL or you have an event page URL. How are those URLs performing, right? Where your traffic came from, whether it came from Twitter, whether it came from Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. So this is how you could take all of the information that we just went through, and then you put that into a neat little dashboard which gives you an immediate overview of how your channel is performing. You immediately come to know, so you can do something like what I do. When something goes up, I put a green on it. When something goes down, when I lose followers, then I put a red on it. So then again, when I look at it in one go, I know exactly how it's performed, whether the page is doing well or whether it's not doing well, right? Let me switch between tabs again, sorry for the annoyance. All right. So coming back, so now you've taken all of the data that we've discussed and you've created dashboards like I showed you in that Excel sheet, right? You've created a dashboard for yourself and you've created a dashboard for your competitor, which lets you know what content is doing well for you, which lets you know which channel is doing well, right? Is your YouTube channel picking up? Is your Instagram channel picking up? A lot of the times what we do is we put up the same kind of content on Instagram and Facebook, and what we generally tend to see is Instagram tends to perform better than Facebook because Facebook on average tends to have lower reach. But then, maybe the same kind of content just doesn't work on LinkedIn because your audience on LinkedIn is a much more serious, much more corporate audience, and maybe they don't really want to see a video of your pet dancing, right? So you understand what kind of content performs on what kind of channel, and using dashboards like this becomes very, very useful for you to understand in one go what's working and what's not working for you and for your competitor. So then you're able to then use benchmarks, saying that, okay, on an average my competitors are getting these many likes in a month, or on an average this is, say if you all did a Ramadan campaign, right? And you want to see which one's campaign did more better, like whose page did the followers identify with more. So when you compare your Ramadan Kareem post to, say, another brand's Ramadan Kareem post, or your Merry Christmas post to someone else's Merry Christmas post, or your New Year offer post to someone else's New Year offer post, you then know who has been performing better. And then when you do a little more qualitative analysis, like, okay, that's because they did a video instead of just putting a post like I did, or because I did something like a live stream, my content was much more well received than someone else's content. So when you look at all of these details, when you drill down to all of these KPIs, you understand exactly how much your efforts are being recognized by the followers you have, right? Now, like I said, you have all of this data, you've made all of your beautiful dashboards, you've color coded them, you've taken all of that trouble to collect all of this data. What do you do with it? So the usual process that we call it is called, you collect all of your data, you analyze all of your KPIs that you have. Once you put them in a dashboard, what you then get to see is, okay, in this month, this is where I did well. This is where my impressions were more, even though I spent a lot of money on that video, but then not a lot of people saw it. But at the same time, there might be something else, like a simple post that did so well and that was shared by so many people. You then get to see, why did something do better? You can then take those two posts, that video post and that image post, and then compare them and see, why do you think it did well? Was it because sometimes we live in a bilingual region. Sometimes when we put in captions which are English and Arabic, they tend to do better. Sometimes you might have a predominantly Arabic speaking audience, and then it doesn't make any sense to put in any English caption, and you should just stick to Arabic based content. So when you compare your content, you understand what is really working for you, right from the kind of images you're using, right from the kind of video content you're putting out, the kind of fonts you're using, the kind of caption you use. Is it better to use a shorter caption and use a couple of hashtags and you're sorted? Or do you feel like the post where you put in, like, a couple of paragraphs and maybe just one or two hashtags, do they perform better? So when you compare, you're able to evaluate how much of this is really working for you, right? So this is when you create, when you take out all of these findings and you get a lot of these neat little insights from it, saying that, like, people aren't really following my page on weekends because everyone's busy and they have better things to do than scroll to social media, right? So then you get insights and you take all of those insights and you put it into a report. Now, once you have all of this in a report, it gives you an overall insight into what to do with your content and how to fix it, or whether it's just doing fine and you don't need to do anything at all. If you are working in a company and you need to present this to someone else, then that becomes a social media audit and a social media report becomes a very easy way for you to put all of this into a neat little package and present it to someone else. Sometimes maybe your boss doesn't really care about anything else other than seeing how many followers your page is increased by, and that's fair enough. You can look into your analytics, you can look into your KPIs, collect all of your follower numbers and put it into a nice little report and tell them, this is where we are increasing, this is where we're decreasing, this is where we've been stagnant, right? So reporting always helps you in doing all of that. That is what you do with the findings that you have from all of the KPIs that we spoke of, right? So like I said, these are the ways you figure out how your content is performing. You understand when you compare your content to your previous content, or your content to your competitors' content, you understand, is your tone of voice right? Am I being too casual? Maybe I need to be a little more serious, or am I maybe being too serious and I need to be a little more lighthearted when I put content out there. Maybe funny content is something that people like. Maybe memes are something that people like. Maybe funny videos or funny reels, of you dancing are something that people like. Are you on the right platforms? Maybe your audience is not really on Instagram. Maybe they're an older bunch of people who probably like using Facebook or who probably like using LinkedIn. So that is when you also, when you do an audience analysis, you get to know whether you're on the right platforms, right? Are you creating the right kind of content? Are you creating enough content? Are you posting 3 times a week? How is that working out for you? And when you try posting 5 times a week, does that change your engagement rate? When, say, maybe you've been busy, or it's been, an extremely busy period at work, and you haven't been able to post enough, do people unfollow your page, or do people start interacting with your page lesser, right? So you understand, are you creating enough content? Are you putting enough content out there on a weekly, monthly basis? And are you putting it out at the right time? Right, so it always gives you an insight into how much you should be experimenting with your content and when you should be putting it out as well. Then you might realize, when you're looking at your competitors, that there's a lot of video content out there. Do you have the right resources to create the kind of content that you aspire to create? Right, so this, when you take a report, these are the kinds of insights that it always gives you. If you understand how to identify your KPIs correctly, if you understand how to get the right insight out of them, it gives you a lot of useful information in making sure that all of the effort that you're putting in to create all of your content is efficient, that it is actually helping you, and of course helping your audience members as well. So what you do with your audit findings is always reassess, see if what you're doing is working for you, and then based on that, you then refine your strategy. And then you see that, okay, maybe this is working, I stop doing videos and I do more of reels, and maybe stop doing reels and maybe focus more on live streaming events. And then once you have all of that, you are then able to create your new content calendar, and then you're able to implement that new process that you have with all of these findings that you have used from your audit, right? So that is where so this is where it again comes in. When you monitor, report, and adjust, that helps you redefine how your business needs to behave on social media. You redefine what kind of KPIs are working and not working for you. You then redefine your strategy, and then if necessary, you redefine or keep the platforms that you're working on, you optimize, maybe you don't post as much or you post more, and then you execute the plan that you have. And this is the continuous process. Right now, when I mean continuous process, how continuous and how much should we be doing this? Like I said, usually a social media audit, when you're a new brand, when you're a new person to social media, it's the very first thing you do before establishing your strategy, right? You understand your brand, and before you understand what to do with that brand on social media, you do a social media audit before you establish your strategy. And then once you have it established, you do it periodically. How periodically? I would advise, if you're a brand and you're serious about your content strategy online, then I would suggest quarterly, that is every 3 months. Please do an audit of your channels and compare and benchmark with your competitors. And then that gives you a better idea of how you can prepare, because marketing and content and communication changes with the seasons. It changes with sometimes the world events that are happening. So it's very necessary to do, I would say, a quarterly audit at least. A lot of brands which are very, very serious about this do weekly and monthly audits as well, but at the least I would always suggest a quarterly audit. Once you do that, you definitely need to revisit at the half yearly mark, and then finally a yearly audit when you're going into the next new year. It's very, very important for you to understand how everything else that you have done has worked for your brand or not worked for your brand, and how you need to take things forward when you go ahead, right? So it helps you understand, do you need to hire new people to do your social media work? Do you not need to hire new people? Do you need to hire more equipment? Do you need to sign on to more of these social media tools, or maybe get the entire Adobe suite of Photoshop and Illustrator because you want to create all that wonderful looking visual content, right? So when you do all of this, you understand what your goals should be as a business, and then how you can support them using other resources that you have. So that is why an audit is so very important, for you to understand and measure what you're doing, right? Because you want to make sure all that time and effort and thought and love and care that you put into your content, that's being received properly. And your audit and your reports are the best way to do that. That's about it from my side. Again, thank you to Qureos for you know putting this entire session together and again giving me the opportunity to do that. If you want to follow them, those are their social media handles. You have Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. This deck will be shared with you, so you will always have these handles at hand. And finally, if you want to get in touch with me, and if you've forgotten my name in the last 1 hour that I've been speaking, my name is Seema. I am an independent marketing consultant, and you can always reach me on the email address provided, that is seemakkunder@gmail.com. And of course, if you want to reach out to Curious, you can reach out to them at hello@curious.com. That's about it from my side. Joanna, the
Awesome,
question.
Seema. So let me just ask if anyone has any questions. Guys, you can either drop in the chat or feel free to. Atar, go ahead.
Yes, hi Simon, thank you for this presentation. I have two questions. One is about bot followers or bot like I have seen many posts on different freelancing platform that people are asking for a certain number of page follower or YouTube channel like subscribers. So what do you think how they will affect our presence, because they are not real, they all are bot or fake.
Mhm. So is your question, Athar, whether these pages, if their claims are real, if they can actually do that for us, like if they can actually get us more followers? Is that the question? Did I get it right?
I wanted to know how they affect our social media presence, engagement rate, like follower or comments, and
Okay,
is there
so
any a negative impact of these bot likes?
Okay, so one thing is they add to an empty engagement rate. If you see a lot of bots coming onto your page, then what you can do is always block them and remove them because they never add value. Okay, that is something that I can assure you of. Bots are just an easy way. It's in between. They became kind of a trend for people to show more number of followers, and it became like an offshoot of doing things not really the right way. So bots are only useful when it comes to stuff like chat bots and automated chat messengers that we see on websites, right? That's the only time when they're really useful. But on pages like this, it's really they get to collect this information from other companies that sell information. That is how they get information about your page. And when they say that your page has lesser followers, or we can help you get more engagement, likes, so this thing, it's really just they're just kind of shooting in the dark and seeing if someone's going to respond, right? So when they post on your page, they don't just post on your page. They have software similar to WhatsApp broadcast, where they can just shoot out messages to different pages and then see who kind of catches on to them. But I think we've all become a lot more savvier, and we understand that these methods don't really work, because really on social media the only thing that actually works is understanding your audience and creating content that your audience cares about. Honestly, even your audience doesn't care what your favorite color is, and if your favorite color is on your post, what they care about, if when they look at a post, if that's giving them useful information, if that's giving them entertaining information, that is what they care about. And a lot of these bots, when they do this, it's mostly just kind of a shot in the dark, and they're kind of spraying and praying and hope it works, but it's not really relevant or useful information. Does I hope that helps the answer.
Yeah, thank you. It helps. Yeah, I have one more question. Do we have any tool that give a holistic overview of competitors' social media presence just by putting their Facebook handle or Twitter handle, like SEO tools?
Yeah, so Facebook has a basic tool. If you go into the insights of your page, where it can show you, you can follow pages of certain competitors, and then they will start recording their analytics, and then you can compare them weekly, monthly, however you want to. The other platforms so far don't have it, but the paid tools that I spoke about, like Social Bakers, Sprout Social, Sprinkler, everything, that is what they use our subscription for. They use our subscription to use technology to then be able to read our competitors pages and then give us competitor information. So a lot of the paid tools will do that for you. So I would suggest, maybe with this with it, when they send the deck across, when Joanna sends the deck across, I could probably help you guys out by giving you certain pages which will let you do trial periods, and you can try a lot of these tools out, and then try putting in competitor names. and then seeing what information you get out of it. But all of the paid tools will give you competitor information for sure. For free, only Facebook lets you kind of track your competitor pages.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. I think those are all the questions for now, and I understand that we're way over the time, so let's just wrap it up. Seema, thank you so much for being here today, for taking time out of your day to come and take us through all of this content that you've created. It's been absolutely brilliant. From me and from the rest of the Curious team, big thank you, and we really hope that you will come back and at another point and do another cohort for us or another webinar, and we would love to have you back as well. So big thank you from me and all of the apprentices.
Thank you so much. No, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm absolutely game for another